Masters of the Universe Revelation has recently landed on Netflix, and to say that it's created some controversy and discussion amongst He-Man fans would be a fair statement. There have already been a number of videos on YouTube either defending or bashing the new show, which is meant to be a continuation of the classic He-Man cartoon from the 1980s. Now, this video is not about Revelation, however it will be to address the question that if Revelation is meant to pick up after the 80s series left off, where exactly did the classic series end? And to a further extent, where did it actually start? Just what were the first and last episodes of He-Man and the Masters of the Universe? Let's find out. To begin with, however, I will take a brief moment to give my thoughts on Masters of the Universe Revelation. First of all, I rather enjoyed it. I didn't have a problem with Teela being one of the main characters, as I felt that she always was the main character in the 80s series as well. Practically every episode had her alongside He-Man, Man-at-Arms and Orko anyway, overcoming whatever nefarious plot Skeletor had cooked up that particular week. Now, I felt that removing both He-Man and Skeletor from the story after the first episode was indeed a bold choice, but we got to see how the other characters dealt with the aftermath of this. One character's death in particular brought me to tears, which is quite an achievement considering that I'd always found that character to be rather annoying. And there was certainly plenty of holy shit moments throughout, especially in that last episode. I will certainly be watching part 2 when it comes out, but for me, the 2000X series is still my favourite iteration of He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. There, I bloody said it. Right, okay, now on with the main part of the video. He-Man and the Masters of the Universe debuted in 1983 and ended production in 1985 after 130 episodes. Although it started out essentially as an extended toy advertisement, the people that worked on the show put more effort into it and created an entire world of varied and interesting characters. The show was so successful that She-Ra, Princess of Power, was launched in 1985, but only managed 1 year's worth of production. That ended in 1986 after 93 episodes. The two series were fortunate to manage a huge grand total of 223 episodes, along with 3 specials including The Greatest Adventures of All, Skeletor's Revenge, and a Christmas special. Not to mention one animated feature-length film, The Secret of the Sword. The first approved episode of He-Man and the Masters of the Universe was the Cosmic Comet. However, this has created a few problems when people try to find out what the first episode of the show is. Once all the episodes of He-Man had been produced, most stations aired the episodes in production order. Hence, the Cosmic Comet would be first, the Shaping Staff second, Disappearing Act third, and the fourth would be Diamond Ray of Disappearance. This would also be the same on the DVD releases. It also explains as well why the return of Orko's uncle comes first before Orko's favourite uncle, which is meant to take place before that. However, in terms of the first episode to be aired on TV in most countries, it was usually Diamond Ray of Disappearance. The episode was the premiere and one of the first episodes to be animated, packaged and shipped, but the Cosmic Comet, as the first approved episode, just got lucky. The production code for the Cosmic Comet is MU1, whilst Diamond Ray of Disappearance is MU4. So therefore, Cosmic Comet, by the numbering system, was usually broadcast first. Now, the Cosmic Comet doesn't really introduce us to any of the characters. We're just thrown slap bang right into the proceedings. We also have the wizard, Zagraz, as one of the main characters in this episode, and he never had a toy version of him created. Not to mention that his animation style, his appearance, and even his voice is a complete contrast from the other characters in the show. He doesn't look like he belongs in an episode of He-Man. He looks and sounds like he should be on a Saturday morning Disney cartoon, like the Gummy Bears. First episodes tend to stick out like sore thumbs because they do not fit the accepted continuity of the rest of the series. However, in the case of Diamond Ray of Disappearance, this was a rare exception to the rule. The episode starts off with an average storyline, i.e. it's Skeletor trying to break into Castle Grayskull again, but there are a few small hints that this was intended to be the premiere episode. First of all, the episode begins with Skeletor summoning his evil warriors to come to Snake Mountain to help him with his evil plan. In this episode, the writers made sure that the 4 villains were all identified by name, and that we got a brief subtitle to explain who they are and what their powers are. For example, Evil Lyn, Sorceress of Night; Trapjaw, Wizard of Weapons; Triclops, Master of Vision. Once all the villains are assembled together, Skeletor lays out his plan to seize the powers of Castle Grayskull using an artifact known as the Diamond Ray of Disappearance. This would go on to be a repeated story throughout the series, where Skeletor would have some sort of device or ancient artifact that he would use to try and break into the castle. Whether it was the Shaping Staff, the Dragon Pearl, or even a robotic version of He-Man. But this would be the first time in canon of the classic series that he would be doing this. From there we go on to the Palace of Eternia, and although we don't get an introduction to all the characters like we did with the villains, it is quickly established that Orko's magic tricks tend to go wrong, usually at the expense of Man-at-Arms. It's also established that Teela is the captain of the Royal Guards, and that King Randor is disheartened at Prince Adam's laziness. Although I always felt that Adam was never truly lazy or a coward. As we would see in later episodes of the show, and even in Secret of the Sword, Adam himself was quite physically capable of handling himself, but he would pretend to have this mild-mannered alter ego so that no one would ever suspect him of being the most powerful man in the universe. Ram Man and Stratos would also later appear in the episode, and the writers made sure that these 2 characters were referred to by name. After all, these 2 had toy versions of them, whilst King Randor did not. Well, not at this point in the series anyway. After all, this was Mattel's first big venture into the animated world of toy advertising. Whilst this episode was not an in-depth explanation of He-Man, it was the springboard for all the other episodes. Some stories are better than Diamond Ray of Disappearance, others are worse. Diamond Ray of Disappearance has the honour of being the first, and being the episode that created another 223 20-minute episode adventures. I suppose it also quite nicely leads on from the 2000X series. Now, I know that there are some ideas that the 2000X series is a complete reboot and is not part of the continuity of the classic series, but there are also thoughts that this is a prequel to the classic series. I mean, after all, in the classic 80s series, we never did get an origin story on either He-Man or Skeletor. The 2000X series goes back into the lore of Masters of the Universe to show Randor first becoming the King of Eternia, Keldor becoming Skeletor, and Prince Adam first acquiring the Power Sword and becoming He-Man. The series went even further back into Eternia's past, with introductions to King Grayskull, the Snake Men, and even Hordak. Now, the very last episode of the 2000X series shows Skeletor and all of his evil warriors evacuating Snake Mountain, after King Hiss uses the Medallion of Serpos to awaken an ancient snake god. That god in question just so happens to be Snake Mountain coming to life and growing an extra couple of heads. After King Hiss is defeated in battle by Zodak, who seemingly kills him for good, and He-Man defeats the snake god, it looks like Snake Mountain goes back to its normal state. It's certainly fathomable that Skeletor would eventually return alone back to Snake Mountain whilst his warriors were scattered throughout Eternia until, after a certain period of time has passed, he eventually summons them back for this episode, having found the Diamond Ray of Disappearance. It would also explain why King Hiss never appears in the classic series, and that the remaining Snake Men ended up seeking, alternative leadership by either aligning themselves with Skeletor or with Hordak, and in some cases both, because, you know, continuity wasn't really a thing that was thought about in the 80s series. There is also another episode of the 2000X series where Skeletor starts out looking for the Diamond Ray of Disappearance until He-Man stops him in his tracks and seemingly destroys the diamond. However, as we would see in this classic episode, the diamond is a lot more difficult to destroy than that. It's possible that Skeletor found out that the diamond wasn't destroyed, only buried, and upon retrieving this artifact, decided to bring his evil warriors to attack Castle Grayskull again. Anyway, I'm probably giving this way too much thought in tying in the 2000X series with the classic series. I just like to think that in some way the two are connected. So anyway, that's how the classic series started, but how did it end? After all, Kevin Smith was very fond of saying that his show, Masters of the Universe Revelation, picks up right after the classic series ended. But how did the classic series actually end? Did it finish off between a huge showdown between He-Man and Skeletor? Well, not quite. The final episode of He-Man and the Masters of the Universe was sadly The Cold Zone, a rather disappointing episode focusing on the background story of Cobra Khan and his people. And no, I don't mean the Snake Men. The Reptons, who are descendants from the Snake Men, are faced with a dilemma where the eternal flame that warms their underground lair has mysteriously expired, and so the entire race is faced with the scenario of succumbing to permanent hibernation. Of course, this all turns out to be part of Khan's plot to blame He-Man for the incident, and for him to seize the crown of the Reptons, once he conveniently manages to bring the flame back. But He-Man saves the day, restores the flame, and proves Cobra Khan's treachery. Now, you've probably noticed something significant about this episode. There isn't a single appearance from either Skeletor or any of his original villains. It's also a fairly average episode with no real great moments in it. And whilst we have a few clever lines in the script, it was by no means a great way to end the series. Instead, a lot of the He-Man fan base, along with the people who actually worked on the show, always want The Problem with Power to be the final episode of He-Man. A truly amazing and gripping story, including the dramatic moment where He-Man actually gives up the power of Grayskull, because he believes that he has inadvertently caused the death of an innocent Eternian. But of course this all ends up being a plot by Skeletor. The episode features so many plot lines from past episodes that it would have been the very best way to tie up the series, especially with the final shot of He-Man carrying Teela off into the sunset. It would be fair to say that He-Man and Teela had grown feelings for each other throughout the series, so this would have been a great way to close things off. And of course, it would make further sense why Teela was so angry at finding out Adam's secret identity in the first episode of Revelation. Teela does love Adam, but more from an annoying little brother type of love. Whilst with He-Man, it wouldn't be out of the question that she had more romantic feelings for him. See? It all ties up in some way when you look at it like this. Although quite where the new adventures of He-Man fit into the timeline is anyone's guess. I have messaged Kevin Smith on Twitter to ask him about this, but he's yet to respond. Oh well. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this little analysis/rant on He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. Would you like to see more He-Man related content on this channel? If so, please leave a like and a comment on this video. And please also consider sharing this video across all your various social media gubbins. It's particularly with anything that's related to He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. And why not subscribe to the channel as well in order to see my other videos. But for now, thank you very much for stopping by the Big Daddy D Reviews channel, and we'll catch you again next time.